Well, welcome to the journey. This is Kevin Polky, and let me just share a little bit about what the journey is about. The journey is uh, stories, individual stories about individuals who have had setbacks in their life or opportunities to learn certain things regarding either those setbacks or opportunities to learn and develop into who they wanted to be, who God designed them to be. And then sometimes we also have then reflections of things that I may just be observing or I might be studying, and then just some kind of feedback about that. But today we have John Pratt joining us today. And John, welcome to the journey. And I know we've known each other. I mean, I'm trying to think about how many years now. It's been
Probably, well, 2015. Yeah.
yeah. So about 6 years.
Yeah.
So I think when I first met you, it was when you and Caleb, my son, were playing football together at Rockford University.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he would have been a freshman at that time, and you would have been a senior,
Yeah.
and then the following year you guys were roommates together.
Yeah.
uh was his sophomore year, or actually that either would have been your second senior or your junior year, because did you guys both
Yeah.
play together? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. He played. Yeah. The first time we played together was my senior year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so yeah, tell us a little. Let's first start with the football thing, because I could talk about football all the
You
time.
know
So,
that. Yeah.
how did you get involved with football? Why football versus other sports? And we should probably also tell people where you live and where you grew up.
Um, well, right now I stay in Carson, California. This is where my parents grew up. This kind of like their home, their safe spot, I could say. But they wanted their children to grow up in a better place than they did. So we moved out to Palmdale, California, and that's basically where I grew up at, you know. um, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then and how'd you get involved with sports? Why football? Was there other sports you got involved with, or what? Why
I,
football?
Actually, growing up, I played probably every sport.
Okay.
um, to I know my first love was baseball.
Oh,
And then from baseball, I played basketball, fell in love with that one. And then from basketball, I played football, and that was the start of high school. It was my first time ever playing football, really.
oh,
Um, yeah. And
wow.
it was just a spur of the moment thing. The coach looked at me and my size, and he said, "You should play football." And I said, "Okay." And practice was the next day, and I showed up to practice. Yeah,
Okay.
so that was kind of how I was introduced to football. But prior to that, I played volleyball. I ran track. I was like, yeah, I did all the sports growing up.
Okay.
Just try to stay busy, try to stay out of trouble.
Sure.
Yeah.
And tell for the audience, tell us that may not be familiar with Palmdale. Tell us a little bit about, if you compared, especially as a young person, if you compared Palmdale to Carson, how would you compare the two cities?
Too. Um, Palmdale is more like a desert. It's like um, it reminds you of Arizona. Like the feeling you get out there, it's always hot when it's summertime, cold in the winter. Um, it's just a desert, and it's about an hour and a half away from LA, where Carson is really a city outside of LA. It's probably takes you 15 minutes to get downtown.
Okay.
So it's more busy out here than it is in Palmdale. Palmdale's kind of slower, where families go to raise their family,
Gotcha. Okay.
basically.
And then obviously Carson being in the midst of the LA area, right? It's that busier city aspects of it. And
Yeah,
so yeah, so there's going to be a much different intensity level, much different traffic wise and everything like that.
exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay. And so when you started playing football for Palmdale, and again, it was, invitation by a coach, which is crazy how many times we hear that. A coach sees something in someone, and then they join, and then all of a sudden now, because it opens up a huge door. When did football become that, at that time period for you, become that thing where you then pursued playing college, and then obviously traveling halfway across the United States to continue playing. So,
Uh, I really felt like the first day of practice, after the first day of practice, I met all the guys and we just bonded right away. I think me and my best friend, we fought the first time we met each other, and that was on the football field. We had like an argument, almost went to blows. And then he
interesting.
became like my best friend, and he's like my brother now. Um, so it was just that commodity. It's just like football was the only sport I had where we felt like a family,
Okay.
and that's how the coach wanted it to be. And that's when I really fell in love with it because I felt like I was wanted, if that makes sense. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, that bigger feeling part of something.
yeah,
Yeah. And then after Palmdale, you went to a junior college, is that right?
yeah.
And what junior college was that?
It was Citrus College in Glendora because out of high school, I didn't really do good in high school. I wasn't always good in school. That was something I had to work on. So I didn't get accepted to any colleges, but I still wanted that feeling when you move away and go to college because I still wanted to pursue football and still wanted to be in college and say I had a college degree. So I had to go that route, but I still wanted that feeling where I would leave home to go to college, even though I was in JC. So after my high school, that's when I started. Well, it was during senior year. That's when we started looking at different JCs, and I just fell in love with Citrus and their coach. And yeah,
Nice. Okay.
yeah.
So when you think back of your high school experience as a student, what why do you think you kind of weren't as good a student as you could have been? What do you think influenced that, or what, mind wise, anything?
Um, Definitely girls was number one, like
Uh,
when you're in high school, hormones come in. Last thing you're doing is thinking about his homework, you know? And then I don't know, just something about school where it was like certain classes, like math class, I would really, really try my hardest and fail. And then everybody kept telling me, oh yeah, if you try, you'll get a C. And it was very confusing because I'm trying my hardest, doing all I can, doing my homework, and I'm still getting D's. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So
Mhm, mhm, mhm. I'm doing my, like you thought, doing your part to it, but it's not coming out the way you said, or
yeah,
the way they said. Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
And so then when you went away to Citrus, and then later had an opportunity to come to Rockford University and play, uh, how would you view yourself as a student then, comparatively to when you were younger?
Um, it was just Actually, it was just hard work and dedication. Um, when I got to Citrus, the first thing my football coach told me, the very first day, very first practice, he asked us all, how much do you really love football? And we didn't know how to answer that question, 17, 18-year-old kids. We're like, what is he talking about? We love it. We're here, but we didn't get what he was trying to say, like how much you love football. And then going through that journey, because I was there for 3 years. I shirted my first year and then played my second 2 years. And just going through that journey was when I was like, oh, this is what he means. Like how much time are you willing to be dedicated to your schoolwork, and how much time you're willing to be dedicated to watch film and go to the weight room and practice. And that's when I was like, oh, this is what he means.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So that, yeah.
so that question, how much, because clearly you guys wanted to play or you wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
But when he asked that question, how much do you love it? then then you saw it unfolding over time what
Yeah.
that question really meant, and you could put probably anything in that it part, right? And he was talking about football, but it could be anything.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so that same formula could be applied to other things.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know that when you and Caleb were roommates, right? And that was when that he would come to me. So, he would come to me and say, you got to listen to this, or you got to listen to this, or whatever's going on. And then, hey, Pratt's gonna be, and he's was talking about you making some music.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how did that all unfold, and what was that? Have you always been interested in music, or yeah, tell us the story about the playing music.
Yeah. Um, as a kid, my dad would always used to play Tupac. That was probably the first artist I was ever interested in, and he would play it all the time. And as a kid, I would get this feeling. I was like, man, like Tupac really means what he says, and I was just trying to like wrap my head around that all the time. And then like my dad bought me a keyboard, and I started playing with the keyboard until I can eventually replay basically the presets that they would give you of
Mhm.
songs. I can replay it myself. And that's when the love started. And then I just started like studying rappers almost all the time. I would take his CDs. Till this day, he hates that because he's like, "Where do all my CDs go?" But I would take them, listen to them, keep the ones I liked, and it was like a, something I love. But it was something everybody always told me that you cannot do. So I never pursued it as a kid. So I always went the sports route. Yeah, and then just going to Rockford was probably the first time I actually picked up a pen and started writing.
Okay.
And that's because of my roommate Gabe. We were playing around. We were having instruments on from YouTube, and we were playing around. And I would start trying to rap, and he was like, "Man, bro, you like actually pretty good. Like you should pursue this." And from there on, it was just been like, okay, how can I make this work? But even then, I don't think I was that serious. It was almost like back to that question: how much do you like football? It was like, how much do you like music? I didn't
Okay.
get it at the time. Yeah.
Sure. And so it maybe like football, it was an interest. Okay, so you pursued it, maybe a hobby type of thing.
Yeah.
And so when you think back to that time period, and maybe before I ask that question, so it sounds like Tupac as an artist had influence on your interest level, and it sounds like also your interest level in being a storyteller.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who else was maybe an influence during those developmental years?
Um, it was a lot of West Coast artists, but my favorite all time artist is Ice Cube. Everybody knows Ice Cube, and it was
No.
kind of like, man, like everything he did just out in the music, and then he would branch out outside the music with movies, and he's always been this I'm gonna reinvent myself kind of guy, and I kind of like fell in love with that. He's probably the only celebrity I probably get nervous around because I like grew up and just looked up to him like since I was a little kid till today.
Sure. Okay. And so the fact that he was an individual that, like you said, recreated himself multiple times, and
Yeah.
it appears to continue to be able to do that. It has been pretty astounding, because the first time I've heard of him was as an artist, as a when he
Yeah.
was on stage, and so that, and now I associate him now as an actor than I associate him even as
Exactly.
as an artist now. So, and so when you started playing around with writing stuff out, what yeah, what was that like? And I know it was more of a hobby than it was really it wasn't yet a passion. Maybe it was more of that hobby.
It
uh
was a hobby. Yeah.
uh,
Um,
what were some of the things that what were you writing about? What were the things that you were trying to express, especially being influenced like by Tupac? You were talking about what was going on real in your life.
And then that's the funny part, when you're young and you're in college, it's like I'm not talking about none of that stuff. I'm just talking about party,
Mm,
women, and liquor.
mhm.
So that's what I started writing about.
Okay.
And then I made one serious song because I had a crush on a girl, and I'm a late bloomer. I never really had a relationship, so I didn't know how to tell her at the time. So I wrote it in a poem, and
Okay.
I had never even told her it was about her either. It was just like something I just needed to get off my chest, and I keep, going about my life.
Okay. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Okay. So that obviously is an aspect of this idea that it's like a lot of times songs are going to be like poetry, right? Just going to
yeah,
be, and it may be just, I need to get this off my chest. I need to release this somehow, versus like when some people, like when I think of like poetry when I was in high school, it was
uh-huh.
always trying to make things rhyme or trying to,
Yeah,
and and realize now that it's there is an art part of that, but it's also trying to tell that story.
yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely.
so when did it move from, it's kind of like with the football thing, when did it shift from a hobby into something more?
That was probably, I would say, 8 months after I graduated college.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I worked at the post office. It's a weird story, but it was this old lady on the docks because I worked, in the plant, and we would move packages all night. And it was an old lady on the dock, and I kept talking to her, and she kept talking to me about my journey, my life journey, and God and stuff. And at the time, I was just like, "Oh, this old lady's she's just old and cute." You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
So I wasn't even thinking about that, but um, it was kind of cool that she was just, just like talk to me about life and the journey. But I loved my job at the time because it was cool. I didn't work hard, and I was getting paid a lot of money for not working hard. So I was like, "This is real cool." And then they moved me to LA, where I was just in the basically the mecca of LA, where all the packages come. When all the packages around the world come, they come to that plant. So life changed, where I'm working 13 to 16-hour days trying to move packages, and life became really hard. And then uh, a few months after I uh, was transferred, she was transferred. So I would, during my lunch break, would go talk to her on the docks again. And it was just like, she was like, "So do you know what you're going to do with your life yet?" And I was like, "What do you mean? I think I'm doing pretty good with myself." And I never knew what she was meaning, like, you know, until one day, an old man came up to me and he asked me, "What are you going to do with your life?" And this is during our lunch break. And I was like, uh, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Look, I'm 62 years old and I've been working at this plant since I'm 18. My life's been miserable. And lately, I've been thinking about, man, what if I quit this job and pursued my real dream?" And I just thought about that. And that's when I was like, you know what? That's why I just was like, I quit. I just quit trying to work at the post office and trying to figure out where I'm going to go in life. And then that's when I fell in love with music again. I started writing, and everybody at the post office was like, "You should pursue that. You're really good at it." So that's when I quit the post office and went to school for music in Arizona. And that's when I really started, learning how to create music, how to engineer it, how to make the beats. And since then, it's just been like a grind every day trying to pursue this passion. Yeah, and it's only been 3 years now, but from being serious.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. S- So, so with that, all right. So bring the listeners back. Okay, so you were at RU, played football there. What did you get your degree in there?
computer science. And that's the rough part. I always say, like, I think when I got transferred, I went through a deep depression where I moved to LA. I have a college degree, and yet it's hard for me to find a job. Now, the only job that I can find is the post office, and the people that I'm working around have never went to college. They only have high school diplomas.
Okay.
And that was, I think that was the start of my depression, where I'm just like, um, man, I worked so hard in college and I can't even find a job outside. I have this college degree. Like, what do you want me to do? I know my stuff. And then every interview, they're just turning me down. And I'm like, what is it about me that they don't want to accept me and they're accepting other individuals? So that was the beginning of like this journey of trying to find myself. And that's when I found music.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like similar to math when you were in high school, right? Is that if I do this, if I do that, then minimally I'll get a C and I'll be okay. Well,
Yeah,
if I graduate, if I get a degree in something that is useful, I learn it, then I will walk out with a piece of paper and there'll be jobs waiting for me. And
exactly.
that wasn't the deal.
Yeah. And I was like, if I'm putting all my effort in pursuing this IT job, and at the end of the day, I don't even love it, like, how much do you love football? Then what's the point? So I was like, you might as well, I have no family or nothing, might as well pursue my passion and dream right now that when I can.
Yep, yep, yep. I got you. So you go out to Arizona to go to a music. What was the music school in Arizona?
CRAS, Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences.
Gotcha.
Sciences, yeah.
Okay. So what was if there was a couple takeaways from that experience being out in Arizona? Obviously the technical piece of it, right? Obviously the
Yeah.
behind the scene aspect of learning those processes, but as not as a technician, but as an artist, what would you say were some of the big takeaways from your experience in Arizona?
Um, Networking, like meeting new people. I think when I was in Arizona and being at that school, it was almost like this is all your peers, and everybody wants to do what you're doing. And what's going to separate yourself? And how can you meet new people and be together and learn new things together and stuff like that, where now it's just relationships. So now i'm in like I'm still in good relationships with the people that I met at the school, and we still talk to each other like till this day. So that's why I literally met, like, I think that was the biggest takeaway, was how to network
Gotcha.
in
Okay.
the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So similar to what you experienced when you were in high school football, and then later when you were at JC and then at Rockford University, was this idea of teamwork, but now it's in a different in a different activity and learning different skill sets, but still there's this relationship piece of it that
Yeah.
ended up being ran through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you think about, again, going back to that football coach at Citrus, talking about how much do you love, and now we're going to fill it in the blank, music.
Yeah.
How do you answer that? How's that theme been for you now? Because this is, I mean, similar to football. This is, like you had. It sounded like you had people saying growing up, pursue football. There might be a future there, but
Yeah.
if you pursue the arts, there's no future there. Both of them seem to be.
The same, right? But
Yeah.
I was really good. I was really good in sports, really good in football in high school. I was really good the man around campus. Um, and that's why people was like, oh, you should do sports, pursue sports. And now that I look back at it, like my dad would make me go out and do these drills and stuff, and I would get mad at him because he's working me too hard and stuff. And now that I look back at it, it was like I really didn't love football at all. I just really, you know, was doing something to keep my time occupied, basically.
Okay.
And I would do it with friends.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So you didn't you may have said you love football, but
Yeah.
you'll love this one. You didn't know what love was yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So when you think about the now having the love that you have for music and for creating art, talk about that with us a little bit about the difference between that and just
No.
doing something that you're good at.
So like when I was playing football, it's like you just go through the motions every day. You know, you got to wake up at 5 a.m. during hell week. I'm just going through the motions. Everybody's doing it, so I'm gonna do it. Where music is kind of different, where it's like nobody has to tell me anything. I want to do that stuff. I want to wake up at 5 in the morning and write. You know, even if it's in my bed, like I want to come home and see if I can make a new instrumental. Like it's different. Like I like some days I would have that itch and let me go promote myself. Let me go to Venice Beach and hand out the stuff that I got. So it's almost like this is my passion because nobody has to tell me this is the things that I love. Like nobody has to tell me to do it. I'm actually just doing it because this is what I want to do in life. And it's different. It's like yeah, it's I don't know. I just get that feeling like I'm following my right path, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and we talk about it in counseling. We talk about it being in that flow, being in that, and for me, it's similar to that old lady on the dock that talked to you. It's a spiritual thing, and
Yeah.
creating content, creating something, to me is a spiritual experience. When I put myself into that space and get to be part of something created, it's something bigger than myself going on, and that's a cool thing. Not that I write songs or anything like that, because
Yeah.
that would be no. But with my thing of regarding doing presentations or business ideas or whatever it is, but it's being in that space and seeing something, um, something come out of nothing, and that it's really for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the coolest part. Like, and it's cool that different people, how many like interpretations they get from certain songs is where I would write a song about my music, literally my struggles in music, and people interpreted it as like, oh dang, I'm going through the same thing with my dad. So it's like, the interpretations is different and it's cool to hear that, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
Well, and I think having taken some classes in college regarding uh, art appreciation, right? You would go and you would look at a painting or go and listen to a piece of something, and what the listener or what the viewer got from it was exactly what you were supposed to get from it.
Yeah.
That each time it could be an individualized experience. And granted, I think there can be those things where we get influenced by what we're listening to, by the masses. But real art, I think, is intended for it to be individualized, like you were just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think about some of the stuff that you've over the last 3 years, what have you, now that you've been pursuing it, because like most people now, they're going to be listening to this and saying, well, once you find your dream, then everything's easy, and the doors open and contracts start coming in, and
Yeah.
is that how it goes?
Not at all. Not at all. Literally just it's almost like you're pursuing something that you don't know the end result. You don't know where you're going. So it's kind of mind blowing, and sometimes you feel insane. because you're just creating music and you're on this grind and you don't see no results from it, you know? And it's the weirdest feeling, but people are telling you you're getting better,
Yeah.
and they're like, man, 3 years ago, I would have thought. But then you're still not seeing the results from it. But it's like that's when that question comes back in. How much do you really love it? It's like
Mhm.
I could do this for the rest of my life and never get nowhere and be happy with myself that I did it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what would be the definition in this context, the definition of love, right?
Yeah.
It's doing what I would love, what I love doing, even if I don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the ultimate goal because that would be the life. If you pursue something that you love and then get paid from it at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think of regarding your own journey in the last 3 years, not only taking the risk, leaving the post office, taking a risk to go out to Arizona and obviously commit to that piece. Uh, what other things would you say that you've learned about yourself over the last 3 years as you've been pursuing this? And obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously. I'm assuming there is some other level where you have to do some other things to bring income in just to live off of,
Yeah.
which is called life, right? But and that may be what we would refer to as a job,
Yeah.
and it's that pays some bills, and that's but it's not a love and it's not a career. It's a job
Yeah.
to take care of
Exactly.
what it needs to take care of. But what things have you maybe learned over the last 3 years about yourself that you wouldn't have learned if you wouldn't have taken that risk to go out to Arizona?
Um, Actually, this is probably like a deep, deep answer, but myself. That's the biggest thing. I learned myself. I'm learning myself.
Okay.
Like I feel like there's a lot of people in this world who go through life never really realizing who they were.
Mhm.
And I think what music does for me is because sometimes I'm writing and I don't even know what I'm writing about. And then I go back to it and I'm like, dang, that was self-consciously I wrote about that. That's like for example, I have a song called Toxicity. And when I was writing it, I thought I was just looking at Twitter and seeing people's reactions to being toxic. But then I learned later on that that song is 100% about me
Okay.
and my struggles with the music, just in life in general.
Mhm.
So that's probably the coolest thing about doing music. It's almost like looking in the mirror every day
Okay.
because not only if I'm making the beats, I'm shooting the videos, I'm looking at myself when I'm editing them. I'm listening to myself because I have to engineer it, and it's like really learning myself more and changing what I don't like about myself, and building myself to be the best me that I possibly could be.
Yeah, yeah, that's just like a super interesting thing. I mean, again, from an artist standpoint, I can't relate, but in my former life, I was a competitive bodybuilder,
Yeah,
and so that was you worked out to develop muscle groups and an overall look, and you constantly were trying to get feedback from others, but then also be look in the mirror to see. And
yeah,
and what's interesting about that, for me at least, there were so many times what I saw in the mirror wasn't what other people saw.
exactly. Yeah,
And sometimes it was my mind saw things overinflated, meaning better than they were, and
exactly.
and other times it was the other way. I didn't see what was there, and I was too hard on myself.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, like, how, like, and in your case, you're looking at every aspect with a song. If you're going through it, everything from the video to the you know
yeah.
everything in post production. um what has that experience been like, looking in the mirror regarding that?
it's been a little weird at first. At first, that's why when you see my earlier music videos, I look awkward because and then you look at yourself and you're like, man, why are you being so awkward? So the
Right.
next video you try not to be awkward,
There
you
you
know?
go.
Yeah, and it's the same thing in the music where it's like, damn, why am I being so hard on myself? So the next song you write, you're like, no, I am a good person. I am worthy. So you change that. So it's been a lot of just self-reflection, like, you know, and people would tell me things and I'd be like, oh yeah, you're right. I just wrote about that like a few months ago. You're right. And they would tell me stuff about myself. I'm like, you're right. This is something that I need to work on, and it's not always bad. It's sometimes, a lot of times it's good stuff where I'm like, oh dang, that was great that I did that, especially in the music. Like, I could never rap fast when I was at Rockford. Now I can rap really fast. So it's like I taught myself that. So it's like, patting myself on the back. Like, you were able to do this in a 2-year time frame. Imagine what you can do in 10 years.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I just love the experience.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and just like that, there's an element to it that just like editing, just like post-production, just like the engineer, all those things, it's a skill that you're going to continually improve on if you continually practice at it.
Yeah.
And the art part of it, I think when I think of it in my world, the art part of it is that getting into that flow and then allowing yourself to continue to develop and transform through the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very, very cool. What well, right now, what's any particular projects that you're working on right now? Any particular ideas that you have going on right now? That kind of that you're excited about doing?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the year, I was like, I made my first album, and that was all of 2020. That's during quarantine what I was working on. And I didn't have a studio or anything. I was working in my mom's house. And I recorded the whole album in my sister's closet, basically.
Mhm.
um, so I dropped that, and then going into 2021, I'm like, I want to make another album where I have a studio and everything's still me, but I would have a studio and I would call it my alter ego, John Looney.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on now. Um, and it turned out to be a love story because I was heartbroken for the first time at the beginning of the year, and me trying to work through that has kind of brought my music to new heights. So, just and that's something I'm excited for people to hear, and it should be out in, like, I would say in December.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about this. You said that you created this altar, right? To altar artist, which is you. So tell
Yeah.
us what has that been like? What has that allowed you to be able to do that maybe that you wouldn't have done? Yeah, what has that allowed you to experiment with, explore? Yeah, what does that give you permission to do?
It's so weird because when I first started it, I was like, oh, this is going to be my alter ego. This is what I say when I'm trying to be crazy and insane, because that's why I named myself John Looney. And he's just a crazy in the mind. And then the more and more I'm creating this, the more and more I'm like, John Looney is 100% me. Down, that's just me. It's what I want to say, what I want to do, how I want to work it out. And Jay Anthony, the rapper, is the character I built to step on the stage. So it's been a weird experience. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's so cool just to see it play out. It's like, okay, I'm giving the audience 100% me.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
been working out because now I'm starting to see fans. I'm starting to see, and it's like something Ice Cube used to always say, like, if you want to make it in this industry, be 100% authentic in yourself. And I'm starting to learn that. through
Yeah.
this journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got to be such a crazy thing, just no different than when I was young, a teenager, bodybuilding, when you have like a small amount of cloth, what would be equivalent to like a bikini swimming suit, right? And you're totally exposed. but
Yeah.
but there's a but there's a but there's a difference, because that was just from the physical realm. When you are choosing to expose or be vulnerable about what you're working through yourself and then putting it into story, um I can definitely see why you're getting feedback from people,
Yeah.
because they're going through their own journey, and they're going, okay, he's putting a name to it, he's putting a story to it, he's putting it to music, and so they can identify with that.
Yeah. And everybody goes through the same things in life. And that's what I'm learning too. Like, um, you're going through something that someone across the whole, the world is going through.
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like obligated to do this music. And that's why I feel like I'm on my right path, because it's a gift out. I never sat down and was taught how to rap. It's just something I was gifted with and I keep getting better at. So I feel like this was my path.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So John, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, someone wanted to hear some of your music, someone wanted to look at some of your stuff, either Jay Anthony's or in the soon future, John Looney, how is the best way for them to get a hold of you, or look at your stuff? What's the best way to do that?
My website, jayanthony.com, and I spell Jay Anthony different, so you can Google me. So I spell it JaAnthony and .com. And then that's where I put all my stuff out, really. And then if you Google me, all my social media will pop up. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I've appreciated getting to know you over the last 6 years, and then obviously just recently, linking back up for Caleb's
Yeah.
wedding and down in Arkansas. I see you
That
made it
was
back
great.
home,
Yeah.
made it home okay.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you sharing your story about you learning what it meant when that coach asked, "What do you love football?" and
Yeah.
and then recognizing to ask that same question of yourself when it came to music, and then you
Yeah.
found real love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah.
No, good deal. Well, again, I appreciate you being on the show, and I am definitely gonna want to have you at, maybe even after you drop John Looney, your first album with him. When
Yeah.
you when that comes out, I would love to have you come back on the show. We'll talk about what that kind of response when you drop the whole thing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. I would love that.
All right. Well, you, my friend, be good. And let me just say to the audience, I know this was a little bit different than we normally do, of having John on the show, but as we talk about stories of a person's journey, I think this was exactly what the journey is about, is individuals being able to learn from their experience and being able to find their path and find that thing that really calls them, and find that true love, that so they can be in that flow and be able to express themselves and be in that space. It's not just a job, it's actually who you are. And again, as you listen to this, I appreciate any comments, and then being able to send this to anybody that may need it at this particular time in their life. As always, thank you for being here, and I look forward to being with you again next week.